to heed the warnings given by the prophet Ezekiel and the prophet Jeremiah. Israel was sternly warned by God that their behavior and their worship of false gods angered God. Their failure to heed God's warning led to the eventual fall of Jerusalem to Babylon in 586 BC. A heart heavy with grief. Heart heavy with grief. And of course we know that is Jeremiah. The book of Lamentations describes the fall of Jerusalem in 586 to 587 to 586 BC, and is traditionally associated with the prophet Jeremiah, who was a witness to the fall. Jeremiah's two books focus on one event, the destruction of Jerusalem. The book of Jeremiah predicts it, and Lamentations look back on it. Known as the Book of Tears, Lamentation is a dirge, a funeral song written for the fallen city of Jerusalem. As God's spokesman, Jeremiah knew what laid ahead for Judah, his country, and for Jerusalem, the capital, and the city of God. God's judgment would fall and destruction would come. And Jeremiah wept. Jeremiah's grief ran deep. He was called the weeping prophet, and his tears flowed from a broken heart. His tears were not self-centered, mourning over personal suffering or loss. He wept because the people had rejected their God, the God who had made them, loved them, and sought repeatedly to bless them. Jeremiah's heart was broken because he knew that the selfishness and sinfulness of the people would bring them much suffering and extended exile. Jeremiah's tears were tears of empathy and sympathy. His heart was broken with those things that break God's heart. And so it says, heart heavy with grief. Lamentations 3 verses 16 through 18. He has also broken my teeth with gravel stones. He has covered me with ashes. And thou hast removed my soul far off from peace. I forgot prosperity, and I said, my strength and my hope is perished from the Lord. And so when we look at this lesson and look back at this lesson, we looked in Jeremiah, and quite a few things had happened. Jeremiah, as it says, tells the story. But Lamentations look back. Jeremiah and other prophets had told the people what was going to happen. And each one of the lessons we look, and even here in Jeremiah in that chapter 52, we find a king that has been told what's going to happen. And looked like he would change and do what he needed to do. And we see that the lesson is telling us they continued, rather than following God, they still wanted to follow idol gods. And so we look at this king and all that he did. He tried to set up rule and go against others only to wind up in trouble himself. And so we look at this lesson and we see that this verse here has the writer saying, he has made my teeth grind on gravel. He has made me cower in ashes. Now, Pastor told us the other night that back and he had picked up of how they had cooked their food, dug in the ground, and so, you know, cooking their food in a hole and stuff in the ground. And so, you know, he says with coming up with the food, you not only got the food, you got a little bit of grit and sand in all of this. But the writer here says that he made my teeth grind. In other words, he said, it's just like, you know, some rocks and sand, and I'm chewing, and this is what's coming up. I've got more than just food in my mouth. And then he says, we kind of covered with ashes. And of course we know, when do they cover themselves with ashes? At what point? They are in the morning. As we have just said about the book of Lamentations, it's a funeral song. It's about mourning. It's about sadness. It's about grief. But when we look back, he says, my soul is bereft of peace. I have forgotten what happened, he said. Now, who put them in that situation? Them themselves. Yes. But when you look back and it's told to you what's going to happen, and you don't heed the warning, then when it gets to the point where you got to go through what's happening, it's a different story. How many times we've told children, well, I'm telling you this because I've been through it, and I'm trying to keep you going through. But they don't listen. So, but when they get in the midst of it, and they begin to go through the thing you just told them, then they got some grief. They got some sorrow. And this is what's happening here. And it's what verse 18 says, so I say, gone is my glory and all that I hope for from the Lord. All those gone. Good time. And when there's some good time. I forgot about what the Lord had promised. I went and did what I wanted to do. Now I'm going through. And I'm looking back now saying, I can remember when I was happy. I can remember when I had it going on. I can remember. But look at me now. It don't look so good. And so you can imagine this is what's happening. But can you imagine it happening to Jeremiah? Can you imagine that Jeremiah is saying, not only are you going through grief, guess what? I'm going through grief because I tried to tell you. And you didn't listen. So Jeremiah is saying, not only is it hurting you, it's hurting me because I done told you what God said and you ain't listening. Mm-hmm. Because when they took the people, they took the best. When they left, just a remnant there. And they looked at everything that had happened. And like she says, the temple is torn down. And that's something in how we can look at it, because sometimes people are saying even today, you won't say which people, you know who they are. Why would God destroy this world? Why would God do that? And, they don't believe what the word says. It says it's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. But they don't believe that. They believe that everything is going to be fixed, and they're going to be right here. But that word don't say that. But that's what they believe, and that's what they're telling people. And they will say, well, if he's such a good God, he ain't going to punish us like that. What about the 50? Huh? Because every way I read, he tore up some stuff. He told them when they went in, they was going in the kingdom. I'm going to move the people. The people died. Yes. Yes. So right now, people are still, since God and Jesus haven't come back, they figure they can just do whatever they want. It ain't going to change. It ain't going to nothing going to happen. But what do your Bible tell you? You got it all. He's coming back. And so this is what was happening, and you can imagine his grief. And as Lady Turner said, he done spent over 40 years preaching the same, just as she brought up Noah. Same message. It's going to happen. Part 2, finding hope in despair. Lamentations 3, verses 19 through 21. Remember in mine affliction, in my misery, the wormwood and the gall, my soul has been still in remembrance, and is humbled in me. This I recall to my mind, therefore I have hope. Now what can happen here in verse 19? What has happened? What has happened? Okay, I know you have this Sunday school book right there in front of you. And that first verse in there, it asks this question. He says, wormwood and gall. I do not know what wormwood was, but I know anybody that don't have any kind of indigestion and coming from that and come back up, it's bitter. It's bitter.
Wormwood is a metaphor for bitterness.
Right. Yes. Because and that was why they were using it. Because like it says wormwood is a bitter plant. It is the symbol of the bitter and hard condition. And,
Gall is like venom.
huh?
Gall is venom.
Yes.
That means with your physical condition.
Right. And so just as she had said, all of this you are going through and you just think about it. When you are having physical problems and all of this, the predicament you're in. And so she says that it led to them, the bitterness and all of this is what they were feeling. They were physically hurting. And she says and one thing about it was, he was spiritually hurting. And so all of this plays into what is happening. And we have to go back to remember, this is sadness and grief. And they are looking back as to what done happened to Jerusalem, what has happened to the temple. And he says that it just keeps playing over and over and over in my mind. What it could have been, what it should have been, but what it actually is, and what's happening. And he's getting to the point in them first two verses as, I'm about to give up. Isn't that usually when everything beats us down and whatever is happening and what we just did and what we should have did, and here it is playing over and over in our head. Now I know I shouldn't have did that. I know I could have did better. I know what God says and this is that fight. But he said, right in the middle of that, though, and all of this is going on, but this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. What did he call to mind? Good. That's where you're going to be. Whoa, but I got a Jesus. I got a God on my side.
And you say, where there's life, there's hope.
Yeah. Come on.
And we shouldn't be sitting back complaining about the bad things. We should encourage ourselves.
It's nothing going back. It's nothing wrong with going back and looking at your past, but just don't stay there.
That's it.
Don't stay there. There's nothing wrong with going back.
He said, look back and remember, but always look to go forward. And just like he says, anytime you got life, you got hope. Woke us up this morning. You got new hope. You got some new mercy.
And you know when you go back and you think about the things that you did or you should have done,
Mm-hmm.
and that stays in your mind, you're not going to do that anymore because you know what that's going to lead you to.
And that was where he was. But he said, just in the middle of me doing all that, or playing that all of that, I remember.
Yeah, this little passage in here say when Jesus told the story about the prodigal son, it was not until that son reached his voice stage that his mind took him to a place of hope.
Sometimes we gotta hit bottom before we can look up. And so this is where they were. And so, but he said, right in the middle of that, I saw where I needed to be. And so part 3 says, faithfulness in the midst of chaos. Lamentations 3, verses 22 through 24. It is the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, said my soul. Therefore will I hope in him. What happened? In verse 22, after he came to himself, huh?
The Lord is merciful.
Mm-hmm.
Continue to bless him no matter what he went through. The Lord has continued to bless him.
And he is compassionate.
So he says, he look at this point, and we go, we can think about it. God is always merciful. And we have to remember that. So the thought is right here is that you could have been in a place that you've done something and it's so bad you think that God can't forgive you or won't forgive you. So if you are in that place, then this verse is telling you what? When we get to this part, he's merciful. God is faithful. God is not going to change. We change, but God is not going to change. He has promised us that he's going to forgive us. In other words, when we are looking back, we can look back at the cross. We got to do it. When they are doing this, and it's done, they have to depend on just the word of God. They have to trust just God. But as far as we're concerned, we know what Jesus did when he went to the cross. And so, but God has already told them what? If they got the first five books, he done already gave them